Hi, this is Paul Palmer. Today I completed the training for good distribution practice with RSSL. Tomorrow it's on to the RP course. And I must say that the group that we had today was really good. I found it a pleasure to interact with them. They were willing to give feedback, they were willing to talk. We had a pleasant day. I believe that they found it useful. We had good interaction, plenty of questions, found some answers to additional information that they needed, references and the like. My colleague Jane Wright was co-presenter with me, and we did this good distribution practice training on behalf of Reading Scientific Services Ltd, RSSL, as probably most people know. Now, the interesting thing I found about it was there wasn't so much, not so much inquiry about Brexit as there was in the previous RP refresher course. And I think that's probably because people realize when you explain to them that the government is still in discussion, that you can't really tell them very much. We did talk about the RPI role, the responsible person for import, which is going to be introduced at the beginning of next year. Now, the requirements for this were announced about 3 weeks ago, I think it was, on the MHRA webinar system, and of course the communication prior to that as well in writing. But at the moment, as it stands, what's the RPI going to do? Well, the feedback that we've had so far from the Medicines and Healthcare Regulatory Agency is that the RPI will make sure that the product that's being imported from Europe has been released by a QP. But what else? Well, there's going to be a 6-month transition period. So we add a person within the first 6 months. But there's a requirement to put the person, the RPI, name them on the 1st of January. So do we do it on the 1st of January? But it's going to take time to put the variation through. And what's the requirements for the RPI? What education system do they need to go through? Well, nothing yet. But there will be a transition period up to 2023 where the training for the RPI is going to be introduced. And of course, existing QPs are eligible, but there was more mention of existing RPs. My expectation is that the responsible person will take on the role initially. But because it's an expectation that the RPI will be reviewing and releasing the product that comes in from Europe, if you're a distributor in the UK and a significant proportion of your stock comes from Europe, there's going to be a lot of work. So do you really think that the RPI and the RP role are going to be combined? I don't think so, not really. I think initially the RP will be nominated because it's the same letters. And it still says responsible person, so why not? But the responsible person can't get detracted from their routine duties. They have responsibilities already. And if they're away auditing, who's doing the release? Who's doing the review of the batches? How much of the actual documentation that the RPI is responsible for can they delegate? How much of it can be trained to the QA team? I hope it's not going to be performed by the goods in team, because really you've got a conflict of interest there. They want to get the product through and into stock so it's ready for shipment. And of course, then you've got the QP. Well, the QP is already in demand. There's been additional requirements for the QP over the last, I'd say somewhere 5 to 10 years, that the demand for QPs in the UK has been increasing. And I see that increasing further in the way that the distribution networks change as a result of the Brexit, our exit from the EU. So I do feel that the requirements for the QP is going to get more, not less. So is it reasonable to ask the QP to be the RPI as well? I don't really think so. I know I'll be eligible. And if somebody needs it doing, if they're desperate, well, of course, I'll support them. But really, I don't think it's something that the QP routinely should be doing. Although I have been doing a similar role in clinical. So the clinical supply routes require the RP release on an individual basis, batch by batch, whether it's 1 unit or 10 units. And in that role, we did look at the requirements for the certification, but there was more to it than that. So it's probably not the same. I'm anticipating that there's going to be a slow shift. I don't think it'll be a sudden 1st of January and you can't bring anything in. I think the terms, the customs terms, will probably be more of a delaying factor than the RPI release requirements. But we'll see. Maybe it will, maybe it won't. The people I've been talking to already require the batch release certificate, the QP signed certificate, when they're doing the release into the UK. So maybe it's not going to be that significant a change. Maybe the requirements will still continue to process the batches and the documentation in the way we do now. We shall see. Okay, that's it for me for today. Talk to you soon. Thanks, it's Paul Palmer.